All right, welcome to Church Brand Guide. My name is Michael Persad, and we're going to jump into the topic of a brand guide. And we're going to talk about what is a brand guide and how do we use it? How do we use it as a tool to help us create a really great, consistent experience that our audience loves? And one of the big things about a brand guide is that it comes from a discovery about who we are and who we serve. And then we're creating some key elements that will help us present that to our audience in a consistent way. So this is the Church Brand Guide. I'm going to walk through just a little bit of what we do around here. So we kind of reset the conversation for everyone before we dive into our topic. I'm going to share my screen. And this is a little bit about who we are. So Church Brand Guide is a place where I get to serve you as your virtual communications director. And ultimately, I want to help you become your church's brand expert. So today we'll jump into the brand guide conversation. And that is really to help you use a brand guide, learn how to use it, and be able to use it effectively. Ultimately, we want you to be able to turn strangers into contributors and to steward your resources well. That way you see more guests showing up consistently, more life change taking place, and you're getting more support for the vision God has given you. Step one of our process is to get clear about who you serve, get clear about who you are. So there's those two things. The second thing, once we're cleared, then we ought to create the experience that points back to that clarity, that vision that we have. And then the third thing is we want to attract people and have a way and a method to be able to attract people on a regular basis. And then step number 4 is to get buy-in. So one of the cool things we're going to be talking about today is the brand guide. And the brand guide really touches on all 4 of these areas. It should be a great playbook for you to be able to have clarity and also be able to create the right experience based on that clarity and have a plan in place to attract people and also to get buy-in. We talked about a logo being something that is a symbol. And in the Bible, there are symbols everywhere in the Bible. So here's just a few. Noah had a rainbow that was given to him as a symbol of a promise from God. The Ark of the Covenant was a symbol of God's presence to Moses. In the New Testament, the cross was used as a symbol. The Apostle Paul and different apostles pointed back to the cross as being just a symbol of God's love for us. Jesus, when he was ministering, he used stories, right? Parables to be able to tell us about principles or even just tell us about the character of God. He could have just told people, but he used symbols. He used these stories that people could relate to. So a brand is really built around this idea of how do we symbolize what the vision is that God has given us. That's where the logo design kind of comes into play. These are just logos from different churches, and churches, the logos for churches are just, they're all over the place, and that's okay. This is just a few examples of logos that are from different churches, and they really reflect a vision that God has given to that church. Some church logos are kind of this classic looking logo that has a design that is very appealing towards people that are, maybe from a background of church. Some logos are very trendy. They almost look like they're for a club or something that's not a church. And then there's some logos that are very corporate. They look like they might be for a company of some kind. So depending on the audience you're trying to reach, your logo might be a little bit of lean one way or the other. But the simple guiding idea of a logo is that it should be simple. It needs to be very simple. You can see all these designs that I'm showing you right now are very simple so that it can be used on multiple forms of media and it can be recognized quickly. The more simple it is, the more quickly it can be recognized. In fact, if I were to ask you, which one do you recognize the fastest on this page that you're looking at, it would probably be the one in the upper left, if I had to guess. I'm not going to take a poll, but I'm just going to guess that one. So that's the Hillsong logo, and it's a circle with the word Hillsong in the middle of it. Couldn't get any simpler than that. But that's the one that's the most recognizable, mainly because of the simplicity of it. So great logos, great brands are really simple. Brand is all about perception. It's how people perceive you. So before we get into the branding guide conversation, we need to just set up the idea of why it's important So brand is perception. So it's not about what you say about yourself. It's about what they say about you. That's what matters the most. And that's what people will brand you as. Like you can say, hey, or I can say to you guys, hey, I am awesome. Like you should really get to know me because I'm a great guy. And that's one thing if I say it. But what really matters is does John say it or does Pam say it? That's what really matters. That's really my brand. With that in mind, we have to be intentional about the end result. And that's why I love branding for churches. It's just a way for us to be intentional about the end result that God wants us to have. In other words, it's about the vision. Like, what is the vision that God has given us? And then let's be intentional about that vision. So for me, I've talked about my family before, but I have 4 kids. They're all young, and they are wow. They're all over the place. They're eight and under, 8, 5, 3, and 1. So I'm trying to lead them. And one of the things that hit me just a little while ago is that I do these branding things for companies and churches. I should do it for my family. So I created a branding guide document for my family. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's got like all the life scriptures that I've accumulated. It's got the values that I've learned over the years, all that stuff into like one kind of dashboard document, if you will. And it just helps me to lead my family out of a place of identity versus out of because I said so. So I have an end result that I have a vision for my family, and the vision is not too big. It's only, to be a world changer. That's all. That's the vision. But the concept of the vision is that, hey, if my kids grow up and they impact one life, like they are changing somebody's world. And that's what I want them to do. I want them to be able to impact the lives of those around them. So the goal, the end result that I want for them is to be a world changer, to make a difference for the kingdom of God in one way. So I want to work towards that end. So we have a purpose, we have a vision, and we have a mission. I'll just go through one of them because I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, just as a way to show you how this works. So our purpose, the why, the purpose speaks to the why. Why do we exist as a family? And our purpose is because Jesus died for us. He deserves the very best version of our family. So that's our why. Jesus died for us. He deserves the very best version of our family. So in fact, just early this week, I had a conversation with my oldest son who didn't want to go to school. And I pointed back to our why. Hey, listen, Jesus died for us. So he deserves the very best version of you. So how about you go to school and learn some things? That way you can give Jesus your best, because you're smarter, you could do more. And, I'm not sure exactly if that took root in the moment, but I'm just planting that seed for the big picture down the road. One of the things I really value is gratitude, just being grateful for what we have. I remember I grew up in Guyana. It's a third world country, and I was blessed to be able to move here to America, to Kansas, of all places. And I'm just so grateful for what I have. So I want to pass that on to my kids. But I can't tell my 5-year-old that 1 Thessalonians 5:8 says, give thanks in all circumstances. Like, he's not going to get that at 5 years old. So what I have to do is begin to think of a way to communicate that in a more sticky way that he can understand. So the way we say it in our family is that I am tidy. So tidy means we take care of our things. And if we're grateful for something, we take care of it. So I'm teaching him gratitude, but I'm doing it at a level where he can understand it. And I'm creating a language that's a sticky language that becomes a part of a DNA. You know what? When he's 18, I want him to think I'm tidy and, I take care of my stuff, not because of, is dad around to make me clean up my room? It's who I am. That's just who I am. And I want him to lean into that. So as a church, again, that's just the analogy. I want to kind of point that back to the church world. We want to lead with the end in mind. What's the vision that God has given us? And who are we supposed to be reaching? And how can we create an identity in our church? So our church has an identity. It's not just because pastor says so. It's because this is who we are. And we begin to put that out there of like, hey, listen, if you're new to our church, this is who we are. And if you would love to join us, then come on board. We'd love for you to be a part of it. And they begin to live out and champion that identity that you have, that vision that God has given you specific to your church for your community. So Jesus said this, follow me and I will send you out to fish for people. So Matthew 4:19, right? He's talking to the first couple disciples, they're fishermen. He uses the analogy that they would understand. Follow me and I will make you fishers, or I will send you out to fish for people. And the idea of fishing is just, man, it's just, there's so much to it, right? The fish are all over the place, and you can't just be like, jump in the boat and catch fish. You have to go and you have to seek after them. You have to know their tendencies, and then be able to use the right bait to then reach them. And the bait, you're probably not going to like the bait yourself. Like, you probably wouldn't choose to eat that bait, but the fish like it. So we should use what the fish like in order to catch the fish. So in church world too, like, we've got to have some of that going on too. Like, how can we be intentional so that we are seeking people that they may not necessarily like the things that we like, but because we're trying to seek them and draw them in, we're willing to do some of the things that they will be drawn to. There's a great roadmap. It's called StoryBrand. There's a book by Donald Miller. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend it. It's a really, really great book for churches to just begin to understand. But the idea is that there's a great story that you can invite people to be a part of, and that's your brand. So we pay $12 to go see the movies, right? And we do it over and over again. And really, there's just one simple formula that most movies have. And it's pretty much this formula that you see on the screen here. It's a 7-step process. And basically, it's a character in the story who has some sort of a problem, and they have a guide that shows them how to accomplish the goal that they have. And once they do that, they become the hero of the story. And we see that over and over again. So Donald Miller's book really unpacks that well. It talks about things like the movie Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker wants to save the universe, and he doesn't know how to do that. So he goes and he meets this guy named Yoda, this green little thing called Yoda. And Yoda says you have to defeat Darth Vader if you want to save the universe. And Luke does it, and he saves the universe. It's Rocky Balboa who wants to become the world champ, and he has to defeat Mr. T, but he doesn't know how to defeat Mr. T. So he meets Mickey, his scruffy coach that calls him "you bum" and makes him chase chickens. And once he is able to catch the chicken, he's able to be fast enough and strong enough. And so he's able to become the world champ and knock out Mr. T. We pay $12 to see like the same thing over and over and over again. But what if we can invite people into a compelling story that they want to be a part of as our church? And really, that's what we're talking about. We're creating a roadmap. That's what a brand guide is. It's a roadmap. So when we create a document that is about your church, it's your church's brand guide. It's a roadmap for how to do this consistently over time. It's providing the right language. It's the language of I am tidy, but it's sticky. It's well thought out. It's intentional, so that not only does the pastor say it from the stage, but it's something that we all can say and we all can lean into. And there's colors that are defined, and they're the exact same colors every single time. And there's fonts that are defined, and there's not too many fonts, but there's just these certain fonts. When you see it, like that's who we are. There's a graphic treatment that's defined. When you see it, that's who we are. And a good brand guide document is going to be made up of 5 parts. There's going to be an identity piece that talks about this is who we are. There's going to be a strategy piece of like, this is how we do things around here. There's going to be a voice, and I'll show you an example here in just a moment of a brand guide. And again, several of you guys already have one. There's going to be a voice that says, this is how we say things around here. And then there's going to be the visual pieces, your logo, like how's your logo used, the colors, the fonts, those type of things. And then there's going to be the execution. Like, as you implement this and put it out there and create marketing pieces, like what's the guideline for what that looks like, so that you can do it consistently over time. I'll say that there's a great church in our area. Their name is VOO Church. They're down south in Miami. Really, really trendy church, up and coming. Has a lot of people coming to their campuses. Pretty amazing church. And they are really good with their brand. They do a really good job. And they have this kind of unifying idea that they build everything around. And when they design stuff, it's always kind of trendy, because they try to attract the young clubbing people that are in South Miami, coming off of Miami Beach. Like, they literally try to attract people that are clubbing on Saturday night and try to get them to come on Sunday morning. and they're doing a pretty good job at it. So they're always changing their look and feel to kind of appeal to the trends that are happening. But there's always going to be a groundedness to what they're doing, even if they are shifting around in what they're doing. For most churches, I would say, hey, let's lock down your colors, lock down your fonts, lock down your voice, and just go. Like, be consistent. It's not about if you're getting bored with it. Like, a brand is not about you. It's about the people you're trying to reach. When you're getting bored with it, somebody's learning it and hearing it and receiving it and responding to it for the first time. So just stick with it, and it'll help you be more attractive as you build out your brand over time. So this is the brand guide for Vibrant Church. And you guys, again, you might have something similar going on for you, but there's 5 sections that we just talked about. And this is our script, right? So let me just talk about how we use this. And that the point of this whole call today is just to help you use it. In this script, we have our audience who has a problem. We show empathy. We have our plan. And so what we did, and what you should have, is a script. We wrote up an article that uses that outline. And it's just an article that tells our story. And it states 3 things: the problem, our solution to the problem, and the results you can expect. So when you watch the infomercial at 2 a.m. in the morning, they're using the exact same thing on a marketing side. They're stating the problem that you have dirty carpets. They're presenting a solution of this amazing vacuum. And then they're providing the results of, like, hey, your kids are going to love your carpet and be able to roll around all day and even eat off of it because this vacuum is so awesome. And so it's the same thing they're using in marketing terms that we can use to begin to unpack our story to the audience in a way that they're going to be compelled to it. And I'll say in church world, there's 3 kind of basic problems that we're really good at solving. One is people lacking purpose. So we can say as a church, hey, listen, we'll help you find purpose in life. Number 2 is they're lacking community, or they're lacking a place to belong. So again, churches are really good at, hey, we can provide a place for you to belong, to be a part of family. And number 3 is hope. A lot of times people are lacking hope, and the church is a great place for people to find hope, to be inspired, to be more than what they are. The brand strategy piece, this is something that I work through with our clients, and we define a lot of this stuff. So I won't get into too much details. In fact, in our membership, I do get into details on how you can do this for yourself. But what is the journey that you have for people when they come for the first time and they show up? What's the end result that you have for them? And then what are the steps to get them there? What does that look like for your church? Let's create that. Let's be clear about what that is. What's your marketing look like? Like, what's your website for? Like, can you tell me what that is? Is it for the guest, first time people that are checking you out, or is it for the members? And let's be clear, like, what's the website for? And if you're asking, should we get an app? Well, the answer is somewhere here. Like, if we get an app for the church, who's it going to serve? So just a quick answer that I found works really well. Your website is for the new person checking you out, because that's the first place you're going to go look. So design it really well for that. And then if you do design an app for your church, make that for the members. Like, it's an internal piece. New people checking you out are not going to download your app before they build some trust that they want to actually be a part of what you're doing. And then so also in the marketing, what's your social media need to look like? Let's create a schedule ahead of time so that we can give it to a volunteer that can post and help us keep that churn going. What's our guest follow-up look like? And again, we've talked about this in our membership, so you can always reference some of those things if you're a member. And then what does our funnel look like? So in the marketplace, they have a sales funnel. You try to get as many people in the top, and then you take them down a few steps until they buy your product. Well, in church world, it's a little different. I think it's more of a journey. Like, how do you attract as many people as you can? And then once you do that, how do you call them to take a next step? So Easter is a great example of a time of year where you can attract as many people as you can. It's just a natural time to get new people coming in. And a church that has a plan to attract new people is a healthy church. The churches that don't attract new people or are intentional about attracting new churches, they get kind of weird. They basically, you look at yourself and you try to do something that serves yourself, and to the outsider, it seems strange. And that's what happens to a lot of churches. So you always have, it's like when you invite somebody to come to your house, you just pay attention more to what's happening in your house. Like that picture frames that's been crooked for like 3 months, you straighten it up because now you're going to have a new guest that's going to be there. So churches need to do the same thing. Expect new people, invite new people, and then create the experience that they're going to love. So this is just a strategy of how to do that. This is we need to have a strategy of how do we reach out? How are we intentional about our events so that in our marketing, we're doing the right things consistently over time. Like if we use Facebook ads, let's make sure we have a plan in place for how we do that and how be consistent with it. This is our voice. And the piece in this that I want to point out is some phrases that we say around here all the time. So it comes mainly from our pastor, right? So at Vibrant Church, Pastor Brandon has some things that are just in his heart that God has given to him, and he says it all the time. So we have a great tagline that we use. We've talked about that in the past in our membership. It's called Live a Better Story. So our vision is to help as many people as possible in South Florida live a better story than the one that they are living now. And a couple phrases that Pastor Brandon has put out there is that we're just a bunch of rough draft people. So when I heard that rough draft people, I was like, "Ooh, that's good. Let's write that down. Like, that's just something that's going to be part of our brand." In fact, this past week, Pastor Brandon got stopped at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and this lady's like, "Hey, I was at church, and you didn't say the words." And he's like, "What? What didn't I say? I didn't say Jesus?" No, she's like, "No, you didn't say the words rough draft people." He's like, "I love that." So we're coining those phrases and creating a consistent way that all of us can say that, and all of us can talk about it in the same way. We have some other phrases that we've documented here about our church that just explains who we are. So the brand visuals are the things I talked about. This is our logo. This is how we use the logo. We don't use it any other way. We don't squish it. We don't squash it. We don't squeeze it. We don't do anything like that. We keep it consistent. These are the colors, and those are the values for the colors that we use every single time. So it looks the same online as it does when you show up at the front door. These are our fonts, and only these fonts. We don't use other fonts. These are the brand. So this is the brand execution piece of it. This is our graphic treatment. These are our photo treatments. So we're creating a consistent experience so that people can, I guess for two things. One is that people that are on our church team are able to know how to win. So that's important, that you know how to win as a person that's creating graphics for our team, or a photographer that's helping us create stuff, or somebody that's posting on social media for us, like they know how to win. And then the other person in this scenario is the person that's on the outside. When they see a presentation of who we are, it's not schizophrenic. It's not all over the place. It's consistent. And if you're resonating with it, then at some point you're going to pull the trigger. In fact, just this past week, so I love branding. I love marketing, of course. That's kind of what I do. That's why you're here. So this past week, I bought a course that's going to help me learn even more stuff about branding and marketing. And it's one of those courses where I didn't know it existed about 6 months ago, but I found this podcast. And this podcast was really great. I was learning some good stuff from it. And then I realized they have a course that takes this even deeper. So I, over several months of listening to the podcast, I was like, man, this is just really good. It's resonating. It's awesome. Love this stuff. And then finally, I think it was like Monday of this week, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy this course. So I bought the course, and it's several $100s. Like it's not like a $12 course. Over time, they built trust. They provided a consistent experience. Almost every episode, they talk about, hey, I'd love to go deeper with you on my course. And they just kept on talking about the course, not pitching it, but just like sharing really good content and then creating a consistent message over time that to the point. And then I checked out their website. The website looked legit. It looked like it was well done and well put together. So they built trust with me. Like, hey, this is not just something that is, some teenager that's 16 years old trying to make a dollar. They're actually legit. And so finally on Monday of this week, I bought the course, and I'm happy I did. It was good. So you'll probably be getting some knowledge from me over some time as I go through that course and pick up a few things. But that's how it works too in church world. Like how can you present this great consistent experience where people can build trust over time, and they're not going to probably most often than not, they're not going to come the first time they hear that message or even the second, but it might be like the 12th time. In fact, in marketing world, it's 12. They shoot for 12 touches before somebody on average will respond to your message and actually take action in some way to do what you're asking them to do. So your brand guide provides a playbook. It's how you do your church, how you present your church consistently over time. So only use those fonts, only use those colors as you present your brand, and you'll create a unique experience based on your vision. Only use the logo the way that it's designed to be used. And you're locking it down so that there's no, abuse happening, but there's a consistency that's happening from time to time. Every time you express who you are to the community online or in print. So that's the idea behind a brand guide. And then let me show you just really quick. I want to show you one other brand guide. And I'm just going to go through this one really fast. This is Go Church. I've been talking about these guys lately because we're just doing some pretty cool things with them and applying a lot of this stuff for signage. So we've been creating flag signs. So you can see this looks a little bit different from the other one that I showed you. Very similar, but it's their information. It's their things going into the framework that I just shared with you. So it's unique to them. Their colors, their logo, their variations, their fonts, all that is very unique to who they are. So I wanted to share with you some of that real quick. So once again, with Go Church, we're designing flags. We're putting upwards of 15 to 20 flags outside on their property. Some signs that are A-frame signs. They've got a great campus that's right off of Main Street. And then as you walk into the lobby, they actually decided to do a huge wallpaper on a wall. And it's a custom wallpaper we designed with some specific values, some of their values. And they installed that. And then we have some room signs and some screens that we designed and kids ministry stuff. So we're using that brand guide document as a way to say, hey, every time we do something, it's this color green. Every time we do something, it's this font. The logo is always presented in a certain way. So hopefully that's a good example or a good overall idea of how to use your branding guide document, like how to turn it back. And then honestly, bring it to your meetings. A lot of times, like I'm going to meet with Pastor Brandon here in just a little bit. We're going to have a 2:30 meeting at Starbucks. And one of the things I do every time is I bring my brand guide with me for Vibrant Church. So as we're talking about certain things and we're talking about marketing and promotions, and the other day we were talking about, hey, listen, we have a growth track class. We'd love to do something when people graduate out of that class. We'd love to give them something. So through some discussion, we decided that we were going to give them a wristband that says "Live a Better Story" on it. So it's just a simple wristband. It doesn't cost a whole lot. But we also decided we're going to put it inside of a really nice box, and we're going to present it to them, almost like a graduation. And so all of that kind of came through just going through our brand. Like, who are we? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to create? And then through that, the ideas of like, hey, listen, let's just do something simple but super meaningful, and then let's present it, because that's part of our DNA. That's part of our brand. So we're spending almost more on a box than we are on the wristband, so that we can create a great presentation to really drive home the idea of, listen, you did something amazing. We're going to celebrate you, and we want you to have something meaningful from us to represent this moment in your life. So again, hopefully that's helping you as far as the brand guide and being able to use it. Let me pause there. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Michael, you kind of got into it just a little bit. Can you expand a little more about how you start to disseminate this information to not just staff, but the lay leadership and things like that? Does everybody have a copy of the brand guide? How do you begin to bring it down to the various levels of leadership?
Yeah, so when I was on staff, the last time I was on staff at a church, we had a brand guide, and we had a copy of it in every department. And then because I was in communications, every department almost had to come through me in order to promote whatever. So I always brought the brand guide in as a piece in the conversation. And it actually saved me a lot of times because there's a lot of opinions in conversations that come up. And I always point back to the guide. And the guide has been approved by the leadership of the church, and everybody has seen it, and everybody has knowledge of it. So when somebody's like, hey, listen, how about this year we do a billboard on the side of the road? I can say, hey, listen, in our brand guide, we said you are a tier 2 event. And we've talked about that in the past. So in a tier 2, you don't have the budget for a billboard. So I'm sorry, you can't do that. So it takes the pressure off of me. But beyond even like that, we can also say, hey, based on our brand guide, we need to be able to use this graphic treatment. Like, that's a really, really great ad that you pulled from Adidas, and that's a really good look. Like, that's awesome. Good job. But our brand is going to require us to at least tweak that in a certain way so that it fits our brand. So I bring it almost as it's just a guide in the conversation, and has the authority of like, hey, the entire leadership of this church has approved what is in here. So I serve as a guide to point them back to the document that then says, hey, this is how this conversation needs to go.
All right. Okay. That's helpful.
And every department had one. Like I said, every department had a copy of it. So basically, when I say department, like, it's churches are set up differently, but every leader of something in your church, if you can give them a copy of it, and also we use it as a way to hire people on staff at our church. So we would say, hey, listen, let me tell you, a little bit about our church as part of the hiring process. And through that, it's like, hey, this is who we are. Like, this is our voice. These are some of the, like, even if you're being hired for kids ministry, like, you just need to know this about who we are. So we use it as a part of our DNA and culture, so that we're able to bring people up to speed on who we are.
That's good. Okay, that's helpful.
Also, John, I'll show you on my screen this piece right here.
Yeah.
We actually created a huge graphic of this and put it up in our membership class. This is basically the steps that we have in our church to help people. And so for everybody else, real quick, it's know God, find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference. Know God is to come on the weekends. Find freedom is to get into a small group. Discover purpose is to get into our membership class. And make a difference is to get on a serve team. So we have 4 expectations for people when they come to our church. So we actually printed out this document and use it as a way to explain to new guests that are wanting to learn more about our church, like, this is how things work around here.
Okay.
This document here as well is a really powerful one that we used. So right about now, this time of year, about the 4th quarter, we're looking at 2020, like the next year that's coming up. So we're using this to say, let's lay out all of our events for the year. And let's just make sure that we're all in agreement. We're going to do these events. And these are the events that we're going to commit to for the year, as much as possible. In church world, at least in my experience, there's a lot of surprises that tend to pop up. So as a communications director, I was like trying to get ahead of that as much as possible. So I would use this, and I would actually call the meeting. Hey, I want all department heads to come in. We're going to take a look at next year. We're going to decide what are we doing so that I can support you well with all the promotions. And then there's also this document right here, which has the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I referenced it briefly earlier. But tier 1 events get these items. Like, that's, for me, this is what I need to create. I need to create a screen, social media, flyers, posters, banners. Like, I already know ahead of time what I need to create, because the women's conference is a tier 1. So if we can agree, again, if we have that meeting right about now to plan next year, and we can get to the point where we can say, these events are tier 1s, and then these events are tier 2s, and these events are tier 3s, and then get into agreement with that, well, the rest of the year is set up really nice to where you can work ahead and be able to win.
Okay. That's very good. Okay. I see that now.
So, John, for you, there might be an education piece. If you, I mean, this is how I did it. You know, we had a staff meeting at our church every week. I think it was on Tuesdays at the time, and I just asked for some time, and I would unpack maybe this document for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, however long they would give me. I would just say, hey, this is what it is, and then next week I'd ask for some more time, and I just unpack another document. Oh, this is what we're doing. This is what it is. And I would just little by little begin to educate those leaders of the system that has been created so that they're all aware. And they might not remember all the details, but when
Right.
we do have those conversations, they are at least have enough knowledge to know that this is supported by the leadership of the church, and this is the standard for our church.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions from anybody about the branding guide? I just want to point out again, we are working with the end in mind. So this is not a legalistic thing that we're putting into place, or a bureaucracy or anything like that. We all want to win, and we all want to reach more people with the gospel. And if we could just get our ideas kind of in one place, one document, as far as like promotions go, then we'll be able to all be on the same page and row in the same direction. That's really what this is. It's like, how can we create alignment in our organization so that this vision that we said we wanted to achieve can be consistently executed over time, over a long period of time, so that our community really sees us. They perceive us for who we are. That's the place that helps people live a better story. Like, that's our dream. That's what we want to be known as. A lot of times too, I'll add to the discussion. Again, feel free to jump in. Anybody that has questions or comments. A lot of times you need somebody to help you walk through this in order to create it. That's honestly why I do what I do, because it's hard to do this on your own. You need a voice from the outside that can, with the right people in the room, provide guidance on how to get to this. How why do we need this? How do we get to it? That type of thing. So that's just another thing. If you don't have this already in place, then you probably need some help. So somebody from the outside that can help you do this, put it together. Once it is put together, though, like, you can champion this thing. You can use it. Put it in your back pocket and take it around. In fact, I went to Elevation Church not too long ago. Elevation Church, Pastor Stephen Furtick, and this is a copy of one of their brand guides, and they really literally made it pocket-sized. And every department has one, and they have a whole bunch of copies of it that you can just grab in the front offices, and it's just this folding thing. And you can't see the details, of course, but there's a lot of writing on there because they're describing who we are. And on the other side, there's a lot of colors and fonts and logos and all that stuff. So again, this is Elevation Church, one of the fastest growing churches right now in America. And they've got a brand guide document that they produce and put out there just for people to have that are on staff in the church, and also key leaders that are helping with various ministries. And again, back to my experience, like, I would put this into a 3-ring binder and just walk around with this binder. And it was funny because after a while, I became labeled as that guy, right? In fact, some of the younger millennials on staff created memes of of me and my binder, and I would say the same things over and over again, and they create like little memes of like, here's Michael's face, and like, here's the quote. So one of my phrases was, "What's the big idea?" Like, or "Here's the big idea." You probably hear me say that on this call a lot. So like they'd create this meme about what's the big idea. And it's like my face, on it. But that's good. Like, hey man, get to that point. Are you the champion for the brand? Be known for that. And I think too, a lot of times you need somebody that is a champion, a brand champion. And maybe you're the pastor, and that's awesome if you can be the brand champion. And a lot of times you are, by default, you should be as the pastor. But if there's somebody else, a communications person, associate pastor, something like that, that can also help you champion that works even better. So I served Pastor Clint at the time. He was a pastor, and this is really just taking a lot of his vision and putting it down on paper. Like this is what it is. But anyway, so I was able to take this around the staff, around the church leadership, and champion his vision in a different way, from a different person. All right. Well, let me wrap things up for today. So today is the 19th. Next week, I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the So anyway, I want to get a little bit deeper into branding. So we're going to meet next Thursday, September 26th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll provide the replay for this one pretty quick. I'm getting better at the overall system. So I've been posting the replay in the afternoons from our sessions in our Facebook group. And on the Church Brand Guide website, I'm actually converting that website more and more into our membership site. So I'm posting a lot of these videos into a library, so you can go back and reference any videos, but also like the resources that I might provide in those sessions. That way you could hopefully train. My vision, my hope is to create a training library for your church, so that when somebody comes on staff or comes on your team, a volunteer even, that wants to help you with media of some kind, then this will be a library that you can point them to be able to get resources on how to do this well. This really came from a vision that one of the pastors that I serve, they asked me, hey, how can you teach my team to do this? How can you teach my team to be able to create brands and graphics and everything consistently? He's like, man, you get kind of expensive if I come back and I'm using you all the time. How can I train up somebody? And I was really happy to say, hey, listen, let me work on that. And the branding membership kind of came out of that. Like, how can I provide a low-cost option to help as many churches as I can train up their volunteers or train up their staff? There's a church right now in Atlanta that I'm working with, and it's a brand new person that got hired to do their communications and their media. And they don't know what to do. They're like, they're just coming out of school, and actually they have a degree in production. That's like lighting and sound. And they've been asked to do media. And they're like, I really just don't know what to do. So I actually helped them rebrand their church. And then through that process, I invite them to be part of this, so that they can basically just learn, how do you do this job? What is a brand guide? Because a lot of times people don't even know what that is. How do I create a budget for next year? What social media channels should I be on? All those different things. And my hope is to be able to provide a great resource library, so that you as a church can have that and be able to train up people. So next week, we're going to add another topic. We're going to dive deeper into the branding conversation. I'll send out an email probably later today, just to let you know what that is. So bottom line, I just want you to know I'm pulling together the membership a little bit more tightly, so that we have a better resource library. You'll be able to, I'm putting in some software too, where you'll be able to get invoices and receipts. If you needed to cancel your membership, you could do that as well. So I'm creating a whole little account management system that'll allow you to do that. So that's coming very soon. It's my side project, so I'm trying to get to it as quickly as I can, but I'll let you know when that's up and running. All right, guys. Well, I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me. And feel free to shoot out an email or anything if you have any questions beyond this. And check out the Facebook group for the replay later on today.
Thanks, Michael.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.